Hey guys, Ajax22 here, and I wanted to share with you something a little different, a little morbid perhaps, but you know, part of the fun of it. This is my replica of the Son of Sam 44 caliber killer Charter Arms Bulldog. This is a 1976 production Charter Arms 3-inch Bulldog with wood grips. These are not the original grips on it. I'll get into that a little bit more. But I had all the original packaging and everything for it. But this is an exact replica of the Son of Sam 44 pistol, as you'll note here. Like exact. I went through quite a bit of chasing down parts to get it exactly right. I thought that since it was 1976, you know, when Son of Sam was doing his running around shenanigans, that would just be his 44 caliber would be dated back to 76 or perhaps 75. It turns out that according to the serial number, which was made public, it was actually a 1974 production, which he bought used and then in another state and then ran over to New York. So his is a slightly earlier version than this one. This one originally came with the same profile of grip, but it didn't have this cutout. Instead, it had a general smoothing in. There were actually 3 different styles of grips that were very close to this. One has a little bit more of a squared off heel to it. One has that smooth, and then there's this one which has the correct divot, which the ones with the squared off butt also had, but it has the right profile. Like this is the right set of grips to be the replica of the 44 caliber killer gun. As you can see from the photo of the trial, the indention here, the curvature of the butt. I mean, that is the correct set of grips for that gun. It's also good to note that this has a knurled ejector head. Not all of these had this. In fact, when I bought this one, it didn't. It had rings here, which it might have been for off of an underlug. Charter Arms at this time didn't have the best production control, so the grooves here, the knurled head would have been for one that didn't have any sort of lug or encasing on the underside, and I think that this might have gotten a blued ejector housing head off of one that did. So anyway, this is a replacement item that I had to track down. I also went through all 3 sets of grips, which is how I know how this is the correct one. Every time I'd get one, I'd hold it up next to it and I'd be like, son of a bitch, that did not work out. Pardon the language, but you know, that's actually a very mild version of the expletive that I would actually use in the situation. It's the kind of thing that the pictures of where I was buying them from on the internet was bad. So I have them somewhere in one of the parts stores, but it's something that needs to be dug out. So if it's a real interest for people, I can make a follow-up video on this, but if not, I'm gonna let sleeping dogs lie and leave that hidden away in its bin of shame and misordered parts. The ammunition that I have here is the exact right ammunition for the Son of Sam to have been using. The Winchester Western 246 grain 44 caliber special rounds, dead soft lead. It's kind of an interesting story on this stuff. The box that I have is from the 80s. It's not from 76. The 76 box there's an extra line of information on this that wouldn't have been on the ones that he would have had. I'm still looking for the right box. Someday I'd like to do a little shadow presentation with the newspaper and stuff. But it was a big curiosity for me because in researching this gun, I kept finding out that they knew the caliber of the gun, but they didn't know exactly what it was. They had a suspicion, but they didn't have it exactly pinned down. And then they weren't unable to match ballistically the bullets to the gun or even the bullets to each other, which led me to think that they were, very, very mangled at the time of recovery. So that lent me to thinking, Well, how do they know he was a 44 caliber killer? I mean, there's very little evidence that would, differentiate a 44 from a 45, from a 44-40, from a, why a 44? How do they know it was a 44 special? Well, in figuring out what these bullets were, I ordered the Winchester 1976 catalog and then turned over to, what their loading page was for ammunition. This was kind of an interesting, trip down memory lane. Centerfire rifle cartridge, centerfire rifle cartridges, centerfire pistol and revolver cartridges, which, if you'll note, here under, sorry for the 44 Smith & Wesson Special, there's only one loading. It's 246 grain lead, item number W44SP. Now, there is nothing else in Winchester in a 246 grain. And if you Google it, there's not a lot in 246 and anything else. It turns out that this bullet is a legacy item from a long time ago, from cowboy loadings. So the 246 grain projectile in itself was a giveaway that this was a 44 special. If, he'd used a different loading of ammunition, maybe non-commercial, maybe say a 210 grain, 200 grain, 240 grain, anything that you could have crammed into this, it wouldn't have been as a dead giveaway. But in any shape, a 246 grain bullet would be 246 grain. So they just it was just a matter of weighing the remaining chunk of lead. I found that to be pretty interesting, and explained why they were able to call him a 44 caliber killer before they, truly knew that it was a 44. 44 is, .429, which isn't all that far off from a 41, which, could have been a 44 Magnum. I guess the Magnum loading would have been jacketed at the time, or they may not have even had. They had 44 Magnum, 44 Remington Magnum at the time. It would have been a 240 grain, and it would have been lead. So, yeah, the matter of 6 grains worth of lead differentiated this from the others. Just a crazy little bit of history there. Yeah, it's kind of a cool gun. I really enjoy this one. As you can see, this was originally designed. This frame was originally designed for their 38, undercover, and then the 44 was sort of the biggest round they could cram into the same frame. It looks pretty ridiculous when it's loaded up with the amount of brass that shows through from behind. But yeah, well, actually, I wonder if the hammer's been bobbed on the actual one, or if that's a legacy. It's the irritating things like this when you start really digging in that, drive you absolutely nuts in trying to make the exact correct replica. Son of a bitch. Okay, so I might have to track down another hammer. Let me know what you guys think. It might just be a bobbing. He might just have trimmed that down, or it might be straight. I'm gonna do some research and see what happens. Damn it. Okay. But yeah, that's the Charter Arms Son of Sam 44 caliber killer project. Wanted to see what it was like to shoot. Wanted to see, the why. I guess it was just convenient at the time. The loadings for this thing are not particularly powerful, which may have been why they all his victims survived. I mean, it's not. The muzzle energy is pretty damn low. I mean, this is equivalent to 40 Winchester, no, 38 automatic. So it's a pretty low loading. 38 automatic is not 38 super. 38 automatic is like the 1905 Colt or 1903 Colt pocket hammer loadings. So it's low muzzle energy. Yeah. I mean, a big chunk of lead probably has a pretty decent amount of stopping power. And now that hammer is just going to bother the hell out of me. So I'm going to end this video by asking you to like, share, comment, and yes, I know it's morbid, but interested in historical firearms. This was a time and a place, and if you really look into New York in the 1970s, I lived in New York briefly, 3.5 years while I was going to school, and it was very interesting to hear about how the whole Summer of Sam worked from the people that were there at the time. It was a different era. This is Dog Day Afternoon. This is, there is a ton of movies that are really great from this era. Anyway, it's a way to connect to history. So no hating on the morbidness. If you could avoid it, please. But like, share, comment. Let me know what you think about that hammer, because that's really going to drive me nuts. I'm going to go get a little OCD here on that. And yeah, if you'd like to see this getting fired, we can probably arrange that. It's a fun one. I might even be able to shoot some of the original ammo. I want to save enough to keep the remaining box as if, I think he fired like 26 or 29 shots. I'll double check my notes. But I want to keep the remainder as, for the display. I really think that this, combined with, the right ammo in the right box with the newspaper, makes for a pretty neat little shadow box kind of an arrangement. So that's it's the long-term plans for this. But not so display-y that I can't take it and shoot it. If I can get a hold of some ballistic gelatin, I'll do that too. Anyway, have a good one. Hope you enjoyed this, and I'll get back to OCDing on this hammer, because that's going to bother me. All right, have a good one.